Good morning, YouTube. It's 10 a.m. in the great state of Texas. And if you guys have been watching my channel for a while, this project might look familiar. I did this project about 4 or 5 months ago, maybe. I don't even know, to be honest. But I ended up doing this. This is 2 pieces of different types of wood. And I tried to be cute and put this cool epoxy, some light bright pegs on the top of it, thinking it was going to turn out really cool. And it ended up turning out really, really ugly. And I always own up to my mistakes. I show failure on the channel, and this project was a fail when I did it. So in today's project, what we're going to end up doing is essentially trying to make this right, or at least make this better. Because honestly, this does not look cool. So there's not a whole lot to the actual setup here. All we're doing essentially is taking what we've got and trying to make it a little bit better. And the project doesn't take very long in general, but I looked at that. It's been sitting on my desk at work, and I'm just like, you know what? We need to make this, make this right. And the end result doesn't look all that great either, but it looks a lot better. But anyway, getting into the project, we took the actual pot or bowl portion of it, turned it over onto the lathe, and we're just taking off material. There was actually nothing wrong with the pot portion of it, but I knew I was going to cut down material on the lid. So I just ended up going back and just cutting down a little bit of material, shaving off a very minimal amount that's barely noticeable. But that's all essentially that we're doing here. And then we're going to come back and do the inside as well. But I figured since we're going to take some material off of the lid, you might as well come and do that with the pot itself, so that everything kind of like matches up and looks presentable. But I think that's important. If you're going to mess up something, at least try to make it right. And it took me months to kind of get back to that. But, not everything goes your way. Not everything turns out aesthetically pleasing, I should say. But, same thing for the inner portions of it. It's already at a nice depth. All we're doing essentially is just taking off another layer so that it matches the lid. So this part goes real easy, no issues. Actually, I was really afraid that I was going to chip the side of the bowl and it was just going to catastrophically explode. But this is what the problem was, this ugly looking lid. And it didn't look good when I did it initially. It doesn't look good now. I tried to go at it with just the round carbide tool, but I decided that probably wasn't the best. So I ended up coming back with the square and just working off the material here. And it just pops right off here in just a second. You're going to see that happen. But even though boop, there it was, popped right out. So now we have a clean slate to kind of work with here, and all we're doing is gouging off the top portion of it. And it was so round on the top of it as well. Somebody had made a comment, I forget who, and I apologize, but said it looked like an acorn, which it did. It still does look like an acorn, but I think without that epoxy on top of it, it looks a lot better in my opinion, because as much as I wanted that to look good, it just didn't, and I think doing it this way was a lot better aesthetically. So it's okay to go back and fix some old projects, I think, and we haven't done that in a while. I can't think of another project where I went back and tried to fix it all, but this one definitely needed some fixing. And I kind of messed this up as well, because you can see there's little holes in the top of it where I actually had but ended up putting the faceplate on during the initial project. So as much as I tried to fix one aesthetic, there was another aesthetic that just came back and just wasn't pleasing as well, and we'll get to that a little bit later in the video. But this part goes really well. I shaved down a lot of the material on the dome because I wanted a more flatter lid. But I ended up coming back and then just filling those gaps with super glue and some of the dust from the project in there. And to be honest, it's not going to look good in the final project. Here I am essentially just trying to paste that on there and being like, oh my god, please work. So like I always say, I'm an amateur woodworker. I don't know what I'm doing most of the time, so take that with a grain of salt. So we're letting that dry. And then we're getting back to the best part of the entire video, which is sanding, because everybody knows just how much I love sanding. I think sanding is probably every woodworker's dream, right? Not at all. So we went from 80 to 120 to 220 on this one. Didn't do a whole lot of sanding, but you still have to do it anytime that you work off material. but we ended up doing that, and then letting the actual epoxy or the fixing of the holes dry a little bit, and then we had to come back and shave all that extra material down from when we pasted on to those little holes. But this part goes really smooth, not a whole lot of issues here. Yes, my gloves are disintegrating and I do need to get some new ones, but here's essentially what it looks like now. And I'm like, okay, looks a little bit better. And then this is just the material that we worked off after we finished everything. So we'll get this cleaned up and then we'll actually shine it up just a little bit. But a good amount of material off. But then we're going to hit it with our Yorkshire grit. Haven't used this in quite a bit. Yorkshire grit, haven't used that in a bit. That actually rhymes. That's neat. Anyway, putting that paste on there so we can hydrate the wood, and then we'll be absolutely finished with it. And then I ended up coming back and hitting it with some wood wax, but I did that off camera. But project looks a lot better than it did initially, in my opinion. It's okay to say that you messed up, and I did mess up this project, and I was glad that I still have it and I can go back and at least make it a little bit better. So the end product, I think, looks better than when it started. So it still has problems, but it still looks better than it did. And I know those drill holes are just disgusting, but I think it looks better than the actual epoxy that was on top with those light bright pegs. And I think the shape of it goes a lot better as well. The lid actually conforms to the actual bowl itself. So anyway, hope you guys liked it. Hope you got something out of it, something a little bit different this week. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. All right, peace. Alright, so project is done, and this little guy still looks like an acorn, but I feel like he looks a lot better. So obviously the top portion of it here, that was the big point of contention with this project. It looked like too much like an acorn. I hated the way that top epoxy looked, and those little pegs I put in it didn't look good at all. But we made it a little bit better. Essentially it's the same shape. We took off a lot of material there. You can see what we did there, but it still looks like an acorn. But I think presentation wise it looks a lot better. Wood grain still looks good. It looks more conformed. You can just see how tight that lid is to the actual main piece of it. But I like the top of it and those screws. I tried to fill it in with dust and it doesn't look good. But honestly, it looks better than how it did. So there's nothing wrong with taking a project and coming back, and I'm sure I went over that in the commentary, and trying to make it look better. But overall, really happy how this one turned out. Something different. It's not epoxy, it's not a blank, but just trying to fix past mistakes. And it's okay as a creator to say I messed up and it doesn't look as good, but when you can fix it, take the time to do it, even though I did this project like months ago. But anyway, hope you guys liked it, hope you enjoyed it. Something a little bit different, nothing too exciting, but anyway, I'll see you guys in the next one. All right, peace.